All right, well, the political debt debate may have eclipsed all the other battles that we're facing right now, but don't forget, folks, we are still at war. Several wars, in fact. Now, whether you agree with the politics of U.S. airstrikes in, let's see, Afghanistan, Iraq, Pakistan, Somalia, Yemen, I think I have all of those. The list seems to be going on. Whether you believe that our national security absolutely demands that we keep bases in over half the countries on this planet, whether you vote Democratic, Republican, or not at all, it is time, folks, to face the facts. We cannot afford to keep separating the fiscal crisis from the wars. I mean, does it actually make sense to spend so much money on defense when the economy seems to be teetering on the brink of collapse, beyond collapse, if you listen to Max Kaiser, who we had earlier in the show? Now, that is, of course, the question that my next guest has been asking and answering. Former U.S. Congresswoman and presidential candidate Cynthia McKinney just returned from a fact-finding trip to Libya, and she's with us live in New York. Congresswoman, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us. Before we get to these foreign wars, I really want to turn to the one right here in the nation's capital. These are your former colleagues here. What the heck is going on?
That's what the American people are asking as well. I am on a nationwide tour. We've been to about 14 cities. We have probably half that left to go to visit. And people are asking what is going on in Washington, D.C. But then, of course, as the drones keep falling elsewhere around the world and the American war machine just seems to ravage on, people in the rest of the world are also asking what the heck is going on in Washington, D.C. I'm very saddened by the story that you just played about Gary, Indiana. And this kind of situation is happening all across our country. The United States is becoming a shell of itself. And at the same time, it's the decision makers in Washington, D.C. have chosen to finance war after war after war after war, death and destruction in other parts of the world while we decay here at home.
And Congresswoman, I mean, does it even matter who's in power, whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans anymore? I mean, it seems that these kinds of decisions continue to get made regardless of who's in power.
Well, I think it does matter who's in power, but
I mean, we have a Democrat in the White House.
That's not my point. It does matter who's in the White House. The problem, however, is that who's in the White House so far has been from the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, and both of those parties have proven themselves to be war parties. That is the problem. So just as we are seeing the political process open up and Green Party members being able to enter into the European Parliament, the parliaments of the various European states, even in Canada now, I think the voters are going to have to understand that they've got to vote neither Democrat nor Republican if they truly want peace and justice and a sane economy that respects our environment and respects the people who contribute to it.
All right. And you just, of course, returned, as I said in my setup there, from a trip to Libya. What message do you have for the American people based on your experiences there?
The United States has no business being involved in the death and destruction that is going on in Libya right now. The United States needs to take care of home. And I am pleased that 60% or more of the people of the United States agree with me. Very many members of Congress agree with me. And so what we've got to do, and that is one of the functions of this nationwide tour, is to encourage people to don't give up, to continue to contact your member of Congress and tell them stop financing the U.S. war machine. In every town that we've been to, they're laying off teachers. People are asking for health care. People are asking for jobs. They're asking for decent education for not only their children, but the opportunity to provide lifelong learning. You cannot have guns and butter. We established that very clearly with the Vietnam War and the presidency of Lyndon Baines Johnson. You cannot finance war and finance the needs of the people. So cut out the war financing and bring those war dollars home.
Well, it's a strong message, and I'm trying not to hold my breath until the folks here in Washington really listen. But you raised a good point. You said that the American people are tired of this conflict. They're tired of the war in Libya, not to mention Afghanistan, Iraq. It does seem to be the consensus, according to polls. But yet, when folks like yourself come out there and make messages like this, sometimes you see the establishment attacking you individually. And I actually want to play you something that Fox News had on the air on Bill O'Reilly's show just a few days ago. Take a listen.
We have been watching former Georgia Congresswoman Cynthia McKinney because she's traveling in the Muslim world saying awful things about her own country. Now, we believe Ms. McKinney is being paid to do this, but we can't confirm that.
What's your response when you hear something like that?
Well, it's absolutely ludicrous that Fox News believes that they are the only people who can provide a prism of or a view into what's happening in Washington, D.C., and that they are the only ones who can make commentary. Fox News has not mentioned one bit about the wiretapping and the hacking into the possibility that it happened right here in the United States. And so I agree with members of Congress who are now asking for that kind of an investigation of just exactly what the truth is with respect to not just Fox News, but the behavior of all the media who have been given a license to mutilate the truth, particularly with respect to the wars that are going on now.
Well, it's interesting that you bring that up because in that segment, first of all, Bill was interviewing a Fox Business reporter. I don't know why they brought her on to sort of tear you apart here, but apparently they didn't like the fact that you were speaking to foreign media. Let me play you another soundbite that we have there.
After she made these comments, she was also on Libyan state television criticizing a number of things about the United States, including President Obama's own policies, the state of this country.
I thought this country was about free access to information regardless from where.
Well, we say that we are the paragon of free speech and we're the paragon of democracy, but the fact is that certain people exercise their freedom of speech, then of course that's not the speech that they want to hear. The fact of the matter is that the American people, by vast majority, agree with me that we need to bring our war dollars home. The United States Conference of Mayors has said the same thing, that the war dollars need to rebuild U.S. cities and that we need to bring those war dollars home. I cannot reiterate more the need for us to rebuild our cities so that we don't have Gary, Indiana's replicated across the American landscape. That is the situation. If you go to Gary, Indiana, Detroit, Michigan, you go to Benton Harbor. I just came from Newburgh, New York, where the people are languishing and government is not servicing their needs. People everywhere I stop are asking for health care, something as simple as providing the means to live a quality of life. That is one of the responsibilities of government, not to go out across the world and rattle sabers at other countries and then also deal in the death and destruction that is engaged in war.
And Congresswoman, I really don't like to leave Bill O'Reilly hanging there, and I want you to respond to this last question that he seems to be struggling with. Let me play you that one last segment.
She's obviously not paying her airfare to these countries. You got to, to get into them is not an easy deal. To get to Tripoli now is not easy.
Right.
To get to Tehran is not easy. Somebody's behind this, but we just don't know yet.
So who's paying you, Congresswoman? Is it me? Is it the Chinese? Is it the Russians? Who is it?
Well, what he didn't say was that the Fox News reporter just recently was trying to get into Tripoli and was refused at the border. Now, any other person who applies for a visa can get in, but you cannot get in if you're going for the purpose of lying. And of course, so whatever it is that they want to say, Fox News can say whatever they want to say. They are even losing their own credibility. Even with the American people, their viewership is falling. The viewership in period is falling because the true story is being told by outlets like Russia Today, for example. You've had me to come on, although I didn't know what the subject matter was going to be, but I made it a point to get here. I was in Newburgh, New York, campaigning with an African-American who is trying to become the mayor of Newburgh, New York, after the police have murdered his son. This is the kind of situation that happens in the United States. We have unarmed young people of color who are being murdered on the truly
injustice, Congresswoman, and this is something that we definitely do want to keep bringing attention to here on RT. I really do appreciate you taking the time to speak with us, former U.S. Congresswoman and presidential hopeful Cynthia McKinney.